Alright, Lakewood, before we jump into translating some equations, I've got a really important chemistry question for you. What kind of dogs do chemists have? You ready for it? They've got laboratory retrievers. See what I did there? Okay, enough of that. Right, so we are going to translate some word problems to equations. First thing we are going to always do is read and reread the situation to make sure we understand it. As we're reading, we're going to mark up the question because that's one of the best strategies for tackling one of these guys. Alright, follow along with me. Jalen went to the fall carnival with a crisp $20 bill in his pocket. Jalen pays $6.50 for a ticket, and then he heads off to the rides. Each ride costs $1.50, and he wants to take as many rides as he can afford. Jalen wrote the equation below to represent this situation, where X represents the number of rides. Okay, I'm going to always read the problem twice because that's the way I make sure that I understand it. And as I'm reading, I'm going to go back and just add some annotations to this markup. So, Jalen went to the fall carnival with a crisp $20 bill. I know that's all of the money he has, so I'm going to write equals $20. And he pays $6.50 for a ticket. He's only doing that one time. Okay? And then he heads off to the ride. Each ride costs $1.50. Well, that's a rate. He's doing that every time he takes a ride. And then, as many rides as he can afford, Jalen wrote the equation below to represent the situation where X represents the number of rides. X equals the number of rides. Okay, well, unfortunately, Jalen wrote this equation for us, so we can think about what this equation means and how it connects to the text. So let's actually start on the opposite side from where we might usually start, equals 20. Everything equals 20 because this is the total. That's how much money he had. 6.5, that comes from buying one ticket. And 1.5x, that was the rate. That was for the rides. When you're writing an equation like this, you're always thinking about which term is the constant, which term is only happening once. It's not being multiplied by any kind of variable. In this case, 6.5, $6.50, that's the constant. Then you're thinking about what's the variable term? Which term is it that I'm multiplying by a variable? 1.5x is the variable term because we're multiplying 1.5 by every ticket we buy. And then finally, we're thinking about what's everything going to be equal to, or maybe if it's an inequality, what's on the other side? What's the total? Okay. And we're not quite done because we've got this great equation. Let's go ahead and solve it. Do this over to the side. 6.5 plus 1.5x is equal to 20. Separate down the equal sign. I've got two sides. And the first part of the equation I'm always going to take care of is 6.5. Is the constant. I'm going to subtract it from both sides. There's nothing left there, and I just have 1.5x. And over on this other side, make sure that I do my decimal subtraction with regrouping. I get 13.5. Not quite done. Still have to divide by 1.5. And when I do 13.5 divided by 1.5, I have to, this is my side work by the way, I have to move the decimal one place here, which means I move the decimal one place here. And 15 goes into 135 9 times. So that means my answer is 9. And in terms of this problem, Jalen can afford 9 rides. Awesome. Okay, I want you to look at the next one. First, I want you to read it and annotate, marking up what's the constant, what's the variable term, and what's the total. When you're done, solve the equation and then check your answer with me. Okay, let's go through this one together. I already read the problem once and I marked it up, so now I'm going to read it again and I'm going to add some annotations. Abby bought 4 sweaters that each cost the same amount. Okay, interesting. She bought 1 skirt that cost $20. So I'm already thinking, $20, 1 skirt, that's the constant. That's not going to change. But the 4 sweaters, I don't know how much they cost. That's the variable term. I have to multiply the 4 times however much they cost. The item she bought cost a total of $160. Well, total's a dead ringer for equals 160. My job is to write and solve an equation to determine the cost of each sweater. Unlike the last problem, there's nothing to tell us what variable to use, so we're going to define one. I'm looking for the cost of each sweater, so that means the variable, let's use y, is going to be equal to the cost of each sweater. Okay, now that we've got a variable term and a constant identified, it should be really easy to write an equation. I know everything is going to be equal to 20 because that's 160. That's the total. And the variable term is 4 times y, because I have to do 4 sweaters times the cost of the sweaters. And the constant is 20, because 1 skirt is $20. Alright? Look, equation looks great. This just says 4 sweaters that cost some amount plus $20 is going to be equal to 160. Let's go ahead and solve it. Divide along the equal sign. We're going to first deal with the constant, subtracting 20 from each side. All that's left on the left side is 4y. And on the right side, we've got 140. And then we're going to divide both sides by the 4. I'm going to do some side work for that long division. Which means y is equal to $35. And I'm not done yet. Let me put that into a sentence. Each sweater costs $35. Alright, that is a reasonable answer, so I can tell I'm on the right track. Must have done something right. Go ahead and work through the next set of problems. Make sure you check with the control. And as you're looking at number 3, I want you to pay very close attention to keywords like this, debt. That tells us something about this number 10. What's the sign going to be? You should be thinking about the sign for this problem as you are working through it. All right, great luck. Have a good time.